The following slideshow comes from LCA 135, an archival collection held in the College and Lutheran Church archives at Gustavus Adolphus College. If I Be Lifted Up, a set of slides depicting Lutheran Church work in Negro and interracial communities, consists of 76 slides with narrative transcript. This collection was produced originally by the Division of American Missions under the National Lutheran Council and prepared by Ervin E. Krebs. The slides and accompanying script reflect the work of the Lutheran Church in African American communities in the United States during the early 1950s. Slide 1. Christ Beholding the World. The plan of inviting all people into the fellowship of the Church is not man's idea, but God's. Christ, who loves and beholds the world, said, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all." Slide 2. The Crucifixion. All missionary work begins at Calvary. Without the redeeming cross of Christ, there would be no Christian missionary message. Without it, there would be no constraining love or motive. Slide 3. The Old Church in Jamestown Colony, Virginia. Here we see the ruins of an old church in Jamestown Colony, Virginia, where the first 19 Negro slaves were landed in 1619. Gone is the glory of Jamestown, but the United States has 15 million Negroes freed from physical slavery. Many, however, are in need of greater social, economic, and spiritual freedom. That is where we can help as Christians. Slide 4. Negro Population Map. Today the Negro holds residence in every state. The states in yellow have from 200 to 5,000 Negroes, those in blue from 5,000 to 50,000, those in green from 50,000 to 400,000, those in red from 400,000 to 1 million. Slide 5. Frederick Lutheran Church in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. The first Lutheran church work among Negroes in the Western Hemisphere was actually started in the Virgin Islands. In 1666, the Lutheran Church of Denmark opened work on an interracial basis in the islands, then known as the Danish West Indies. Here we have a view of Frederick Lutheran Church in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. Dr. Arbaugh has the field supervision work of the island now. Slide 6. St. Philip's Lutheran Church, St. Louis, Missouri. In 1877, shortly after the Emancipation, the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, was the first Lutheran group to enter Negro communities on the continent with an organized mission program. Today, the Missouri Synod has over 100 churches in Negro communities. This is a picture of St. Philip's Lutheran Church in St. Louis, Missouri, with more than 600 members. Dr. Andrew Schulz, a white pastor, served this congregation for years. Slide 7. Altar of Redeemer Church, Washington, D.C. This is the altar of Redeemer Church, Washington, D.C., with some of the Lutheran members and a ministerial candidate, Pastor Weissman, coming from the Virgin Islands to Washington, D.C. The United Lutheran Church started a congregation there in 1885. Slide 8. Baltimore Church. The American Lutheran Church started similar work a few years later in Baltimore and expanded the work to the south. Slide 9. Pastors Francis B. Smith and James Summersill. Today these two congregations are served by Pastors Smith, Baltimore, Maryland, and Summersill, Washington, D.C. Although they represent two races, they have the same hope, the same work, and incidentally both congregations face a relocation problem because of industry and housing projects coming into the community. Slide 10. Rainbow over Town. In 1915, during World War I, the church and nation became more aware of the Negro. Reverend Herbert Richards returned from Puerto Rico and was called by the ALC, American Lutheran Church, as mission superintendent. He went into the South and started several missions. This started the expansion of the work in National Lutheran Council circles. The rainbow of God's grace began to shine more brightly for some people. Slide 11. Montgomery, Alabama. Some of this work was begun in Montgomery, Alabama's capital city and cradle of the Confederacy. Slide 12. Cotton Picker. The South is a land of contrasts, with its cotton fields rapidly being displaced by other crops and industry. Slide 13. Poor housing. There is a contrast in housing as we see. Slide 14. Better housing. But there is also better housing in Negro and white areas. It is always wrong to see or describe only one part of a picture. Slide 15, Magnolia. The South is also a land of beauty, with its magnolia trees and stately mansions. Slide 16, Christian Day School. It is here that Christ was lifted up as the ALC started some 10 missions through Christian day schools, when the state could not or did not provide adequate education. For 30 years, the church sponsored and supported Christian grade schools and one high school. Slide 17, Reverend Cameron Teaching. This approach highlighted the schools and overshadowed congregational work. Sometimes it called for the pastor's time in the classroom, on the school grounds, and in the lunchroom. Slide 18, Horse and Wagon. The South is changing. This scene typifies a period of life that is being shaken off. Slide 19, Negro School Building. The public schools have improved in the South. This is a new school for Negro children. Their improvement makes Christian day schools less necessary. The 1954 ruling of the Supreme Court will add even more emphasis to education. Slide 20, Kindergarten Graduation. The church now carries on its Christian educational program through kindergartens, Bible story hours, and daily vacation Bible schools, etc. Slide 21, Church in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. With the discontinuation of Christian day schools, more time, effort, and funds have been invested in the usual congregational programs. Through the cooperation of the Women's Missionary Federation, the ALC has established a church building fund. The church building fund gives priority to mission opportunities in Negro communities. Within the last few years, 11 churches have been built as this one in Tuscaloosa. Slide 22, Church in Montgomery, Alabama. A Montgomery church. Slide 23, Church in Clanton, Alabama. Although many Negroes are moving to northern and southern cities, there are still some opportunities in rural areas as Clanton, Alabama. Slide 24, Temporary Church in Dayton, Ohio. Because of the move toward the north, the church bodies are planning more work for northern cities. Without knowing the response, and for other reasons, we cannot always begin with a complete church plant. But in Dayton, Ohio, this large dwelling served for a while as church and parsonage. This is not the best way to begin and should not be repeated if funds are available for a complete mission unit. Slide 25, Church groundbreaking in Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama did not have adequate facilities until recently. Ground was broken for a new church. Slide 26, Church in Birmingham, Alabama. This new Birmingham church, erected and equipped for less than $25,000, has improved the mission approach in this southern steel city. Slide 27, St. Philip's Lutheran Church in Columbus, Ohio. Lutheranism in Columbus, Ohio dates back for more than a century. Columbus has one of the largest Lutheran colleges, Capital University, which has had Negro students for more than 50 years. But until 1945, the city did not have a Lutheran church. Slide 28, Garage Mission in Los Angeles, California. In Los Angeles, California, an ALC mission made an excellent beginning by using a garage for several months. Slide 29, Church in Los Angeles, California. The work progressed so well, the new congregation soon moved from the garage into this place of worship. Slide 30, Bible Story Hour. We are on our way to a Wednesday Bible Story Hour in California. Note the fine housing. Social and economic conditions, together with education and spiritual nurture, play a large part in the development of people and communities. Slide 31, Miss Thelma Tollefson. National Lutheran Council staff member, Miss Thelma Tollefson assisted with the development of the Los Angeles Mission and others. Her Bible story hours are nationally known. Another parish worker assisting pastors in Negro communities is Miss Anna Larson. Slide 32, Church Service at Oakland, California. In 1948, the Augustana Lutheran Church began its first congregation in a Negro community of Oakland, California, as pictured here. Through intersynodical cooperation, the Reverend Cyril Lucas of New York was secured as pastor. Slide 33. Interracial Mission Congregation in Brooklyn, New York. Augustana also supports an interracial mission congregation in Brooklyn, New York. Slide 34. Vacation Bible School. The daily Vacation Bible School is an important activity. Here we see a DVBS parade to draw attention to this activity in the community of Brooklyn. Slide 35. Reverend Kenneth Dugan in Children. The interracial scene will seem more natural to the next generation. Here we see the Reverend Kenneth Dugan who baptized these two children at one service. The infant is his own child. Slide 36. Salem Lutheran Church in Chicago, Illinois. Salem Lutheran Church, Augustana Synod, Chicago, is one of the older and well-established churches in the city. Slide 37. Reverend Philip A. Johnson and Congregants. It is now a changing community, and its program and welcome are for all people. Pastor Johnson and Salem Congregation in Chicago welcome Jew and Gentile, Negro and white, or let us say, they welcome people in Christ's name. Slide 38. Salem Vacation Bible School. Salem Vacation Bible School outing on Lake Michigan. Slide 39. Confirmation class. Recent confirmation classes at Salem, Chicago, St. John's, ULCA, Bronx, New York, and in other churches brought about as many white as Negro members into the congregation. Slide 40. Christian Activities Club. In other cities as New York, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Los Angeles, United Lutheran congregations are taking the lead in developing congregations with an interracial membership, and the work and life of the churches remains normal. Slide 41. Church in Chicago, Illinois. The United Lutheran Church is also expanding its program in Negro communities, as exemplified in efforts of St. James Lutheran Church, Chicago, and other churches in Philadelphia, Toledo, Detroit, and New York. Slide 42. Church Mission at 1701 West Monroe Street, Chicago, Illinois. The Evangelical Lutheran Church has shown an interest in the Chicago area. Here we have a mission still in an unorganized stage at 1701 West Monroe Street, Chicago. The Board of American Missions, ELC, hopes to develop this and other Chicago work. Slide 43. Service presentation in Chicago, Illinois. Mr. Sidney Swenson, who is seen in the background, and other laymen and mission executives have shown much interest in this work. Slide 44. Filled Church. All in all, the National Lutheran Council bodies had, in 1954, 26 missions in predominantly Negro communities in the USA, in addition to some in the Virgin Islands. This does not include the more than 200 so-called white congregations who have welcomed Negro children and adults into church and Sunday school. There are between 5,000 and 6,000 Negro members in the NLC congregations. Slide 45. Congregation at Worship. Congregation at Worship. Slide 46. Missionaries in Conference. At present, this work is being done by this group of missionaries from 4 church bodies who assembled at a home missions institute. Slide 47. National Lutheran Council personnel. The National Lutheran Council personnel charged with the task of promoting and strengthening the work in the church bodies include Dr. Hoyer, Executive Secretary of the Division of American Missions, Pastors Krebs and Conrad. Shown in this image are Dr. Harvey Conrad Hoyer, Ervin E. Krebs, and Pastor Conrad. Slide 48. Church building. The question is often asked, does the Negro accustomed to revivalistic and emotional churches appreciate a church with an educational program and a liturgical service? The answer is that the more educated are turning from emotionalism and are seeking churches with a Christian educational program and a worship service. Slide 49. Reverend Robin W. Skiles in pulpit. For the Lutheran Church to expand its program, it needs more pastors. They may be Negro. Slide 50. Reverend Trigsted. Or the pastors may be white. if they are faithful, interested in people, and have other requirements necessary for an effective ministry. Slide 51. Seminary students with professor. Today's Negro, as well as white pastors, are trained at the colleges and seminaries of the church. The NLC churches do not have special colleges or seminaries for Negroes. Slide 52. Students in library. Realizing the church must have more and more trained leaders if Christ is to be proclaimed effectively in this day, young people are encouraged to attend college. Slide 53. Bible Institute and Student Center. At Alabama State College, a Bible Teaching Center and Lutheran Student Center have been established. Slide 54. Miss Olga Hamilton. Miss Olga Hamilton, to the left and whose home is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, is a graduate of Wartburg College, where she took a parish workers course. Here she is seen contacting a home in one of the mission fields. Slide 55. Evelyn Hughes. Quoting Miss Hughes, "Someday, I too hope to attend one of our Lutheran colleges in preparation for church work." Slide 56. Choir. In our mission work, Christ is exalted in many ways. For example, we like to sing. It takes us some time to become accustomed to chorales, although A Mighty Fortress is now a favorite in the Church of Mobile, Alabama, and other places. Slide 57. Boy Scouts. We try to make an impact through youth groups, such as Boy Scouts, Luther League, Bible camp work, etc. Slide 58. Tuscaloosa Bible Camp. The campus and buildings of the former Martin Luther Academy are used for a summer Bible camp. This antebellum mansion and the magnolia-shaded campus have served a wonderful purpose for Bible study, training, and fellowship. Slide 59. Bible Camp Piano Scene. Here we see a typical Bible camp scene with young people around the piano singing the hymns of the church. Slide 60. President of Alabama Luther League. The Luther League in Alabama hold their annual conference in connection with the Bible camp. This is the president in action at a business meeting. Slide 61. Montgomery, Alabama Pastor. We have started to proclaim the gospel by radio. This is the Montgomery, Alabama pastor at station WRMA in the National Lutheran Hour. This 30-minute program costs $15 per week. Its continuation depends on the contribution of friends and missions. Slide 62. Pastoral Conference. From time to time, pastors and board members meet for the purpose of inspiration, mutual encouragement, and development of the work. Slide 63. Jackson, Mississippi Conference. So interested has the church been in developing work in the South and throughout the nation that recently national and regional leaders of 4 Lutheran bodies of the NLC met in Jackson, Mississippi. Slide 64. Conference Meeting. Emphasis was placed on a congregational program using existing college and seminaries of the church and Lutheran student service programs for training of Negro youth. Slide 65. WMF Leaders. The women's organizations of all Lutheran churches have shown much interest in Negro communities. Through their interest, prayers, and support, they have had a definite part in exalting Christ and extending the kingdom. Here we see Miss Dorothy Haas, president of the WMF of the ALC, and Mrs. Gast visiting the fields in Alabama. Slide 66. Miss Arna Inja. Miss Arna Inja, Executive Director of the Lutheran Daughters of the Reformation, Evangelical Lutheran Church, visits the California field. Slide 67. Editor Schramm. Through the church papers, editors have had a part in promoting interest. Editor Schramm addressed the Alabama Pastoral Conference, informed himself, and told it to the church. Slide 68. Dr. Paul C. Empey and others. Dr. Paul C. Empey, Executive Director of the National Lutheran Council, took time out of his worldwide travel schedule to inform himself concerning the Alabama work, with Negro and white brethren present. This would likely not have taken place 10 years ago. Things are changing. Slide 69. Receiving offering. Congregations are assuming more and more stewardship and evangelism responsibility. Some congregations in Negro communities have an excellent proportionate giving record. Slide 70. Chancel. People unaccustomed to a liturgical service do not appreciate chorales and the liturgy immediately, but with training, interpretation, and time, this changes, and they become very fond of a Lutheran order of worship. Slide 71. Baptism. The redeeming Christ draws all men of all nations and races to himself. Regardless of race, there is one faith, one hope, one baptism. Slide 72. Confirmation. The same work, doctrine, and confirmation. Slide 73. Lord's Supper. The same fellowship and Holy Communion. Slide 74. Lutheran Ladies Organization. Christians of various races would become better acquainted if the hand of fellowship would be stronger. Here we see a Lutheran Ladies Organization of the ELC visiting the home of Reverend and Mrs. Skiles of Chicago. Slide 75. Benediction. Appreciative of your interest, prayers, and support, we say thank you, and may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Slide 76. Christ. In Christ there is no east or west, in him no north or south. For I, if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. This production brought to you by staff in the College and Lutheran Church Archives at Gustavus Adolphus College, March 2014.